Today I will be disassembling and field stripping a Colt 380 government issue firearm for cleaning purposes. In this demonstration I will not be covering the trigger, the hammer, or the internal pin assembly. Just basically the top shield, the shield itself, and the frame, and internally the barrel, the recoil spring, and on the front barrel bushing, and the recoil button itself. So let's go ahead and start with the disassembly of this firearm. And as usual, treat all firearms as they are loaded. In this case, this one is. So I'll start by removing the magazine. And normally when I clean a firearm, I move the ammunition as far away from the cleaning materials as possible. It is kind of a corrosive material, and I don't want it to get onto the shells or the cartridges, that is, and damage the cartridges in any way. So usually, as standard practice and as good practice, I put the magazines probably onto another table far enough away from the cleaning material. Okay, we've removed our magazine, so now let's go ahead and pull our slide back and lock it open. As we can see, nothing is in the pipe here, nothing in the magazine. If you really want to be careful, you can take a pencil or another non-damaging rod and stick it through until it protrudes from the chamber there. We know the weapon is clean now. This weapon is safe. Dry fire it. And let's go ahead and start with our disassembly. Okay, before I do the disassembly itself, let me show you what we have here. We have this piece right here is the slide lock. And on the slide, this top part of the slide, we have the rectangle here. If I can get a good shot of it. This rectangle here is where the slide locks in here. That'll lock the slide open. There is a little half moon notch here, right there. That is this disassembly notch, and we'll be focusing on that as well. That is actually where that needs to line up with the slide lock when we reassemble and disassemble the gun. On this side of the firearm, we have a button here, or a little pin, not a button really, but it's a pin. It's part of the slide lock. It's actually physically part of the slide lock that protrudes. That will be pushed in when we disassemble the firearm, and also make note of how it should look when we reassemble the firearm. So let's go ahead and start the disassembly process. Just go ahead and, using your index finger or whatever finger you're comfortable with, however you're comfortable holding your firearm, push down on this pin here as you pull the slide back, and you will feel the slide lock become loose. As you can see, I hope you can see, it's the pin is now pushed into the frame itself, and as you can see, this slide lock starting to come out. So we just go ahead and you can just do this a couple of times or once or something like that is all it takes, and the slide lock just falls right out. And just put this aside because we'll need it again, obviously. Now at this point I would not dry fire your weapon, so I would just slowly release the trigger. This top slide, the slide itself, comes right off the frame. I'm going to show you what we have here. As I said, we're not going to be messing with the firing pin mechanisms, and that's the front and rear firing pins. We have this spring right here is your recoil spring. Underneath it is the barrel. Well, I'll show you that in a minute. Okay, on the muzzle end, the muzzle, you have this little piece that goes around it with the two little feet. That is the barrel bushing. This little button right here is actually the recoil button. And we're going to remove the recoil spring first, so to do that we have to push the recoil button down. And while pushing that down, we will take the barrel bushing and rotate it as far as it'll go. I've got it started here so I can show you. See, it just pushing the button down and it starts to rotate out. Rotate it as far as it'll go clockwise. It'll stop. You can't push it any further. At that point, don't just release the recoil spring button because it'll fly across the room. As you can see, it comes out. Put it with our other parts. Our recoil spring is now ready to come out. The easiest way to do it is pull it forward some and then just gently pull it right out. Put it with the parts. You can clean that too, oil it some, give it a little lubrication. Now, you think you can take the barrel out at this point, but you can't. As you can see, it won't come out at all. They've got the pin assembly here that's blocking it, plus the bushing barrel is actually locked it into place. So at this point, you take the bushing barrel, now you rotate it the opposite direction. You rotate it counterclockwise till it no longer moves. At this point, the bushing itself will slide off. On the bushing, there is a small little notch. I don't know if you can see that on camera too well, but that little notch that protrudes there actually goes into a slot inside the slide itself, and that locks the bushing into place and helps stabilize and hold the barrel into place. So now we can remove our barrel. Just simply pull up and out, and your barrel is disassembled. So we now have basically a field stripped 380 for cleaning purposes. We have our main part of the weapon. We have our recoil spring button, our barrel bushing, our barrel slide lock, our slide lock, my bad, slide lock, and the slide itself. Once you have finished cleaning your firearm and lubricating it accordingly and appropriately, we're ready for the assembly part. So let's go ahead and do the reassembly of our weapon. Okay, to reassemble, start by taking your slide and your barrel, slide the barrel back into your slide, pull it back all the way. At this point, we're going to put our barrel bushing back in, and to do so, start with having it the 2 feet here face counterclockwise from the down position here. You see where have it down like that. Turn it until you feel it snap into place with the barrel, and it'll snap. You'll feel it slide in, and at that point turn it as far as you can clockwise. Okay, and go ahead and take your recoil spring, insert it into the lower part of your slide, pushing it back to your slide lock hole, or the slide lock pinhole, which is this little pinhole right here. There we go. This little pinhole right here, that little part. Just this butt end here of the recoil spring right here just goes flush against it. Putting your thumb over the spring just to kind of hold it in place. Take your recoil button, slide it over the top of the spring, placing securely the slide onto a firm surface. Push the button down, kind of keeping a thumb or something on your spring itself to keep it in place. Then turn your barrel bushing counterclockwise until it locks into place. And when I say locks into place, I think you can see this here. It's flush. Nothing's protruding. Your spring is now safely in place there, inside the slide itself. Now, put that section down. We'll go to the main part of our weapon here. Some things to look out for here. Okay, this little curved piece right here, that's your injector. That is what ejects the empty cartridges. If it left in this position, you're not going to be able to put your slide back on. So this needs to be pushed down. So just push it down a little bit. And when I say a little bit, it's not too far. It's get a little light on the subject here. You can see it's not quite flush with the frame, but it's just a little bit below that. and I know you can see it there. If it gets pushed down too far, the firearm will have trouble ejecting the empty cartridges, so make sure it's not pushed down too far. If it is pushed down too far and you find your cartridges aren't being ejected, immediately, of course, stop firing, clear your weapon. You'll have to disassemble the slide in order to adjust that ejector pin there. But with that being pushed down in place, also another thing to look out for, the slide lock fits into this hole here. This hole here. Of course, the other end of the pin will come through this hole here. The pin will go into here. This little spring right here helps maneuver the slide lock. This will come out if you're not careful. This little spring right here will come out. It's easily replaced and put back in. But if it does shoot across the room or something like that, you're going to just have fun trying to find it. So just keep an eye on that. Make sure it's not starting to come out. Okay. These are the rails here. These two items, these two pieces of metal right here, the rails. Now those rails are going to go into these rail tracks right here on each side of your slide. And just go ahead and take your slide. Make sure that the rails go into it. You'll know when it's right. You'll see it feels right, and it just slides like that. You'll see it sliding. Yeah, it feels comfortable. You want to make sure that this little hole lines up with this set of holes here. Again, hard to see in the camera, but the two little holes here for your slide lock. That pin will go. This pin right here will go through these holes, through this little center hole, and it'll protrude out through this hole here. So let's go ahead and reassemble. And if you do this once or twice, you will know if you look through that small hole down here. If you look through that small hole right here, you'll see when the center hole or internal hole is aligned. Take your slide lock, push it into place. As you can see, it's not in all the way. Make sure you have it facing the right way. The thumb grip, or thumb button, or whatever you want to call that right here, will be facing the grip, not the other way around. The little notch here, let me pull this out and just show you. There's a little notch here. This little notch right here, I don't know if it's in focus or not, but that little notch, that little half moon notch right there, actually will go into the disassembly notch on the slide itself. There it is, that disassembly notch right there. That little notch on the pin, the slide lock that is, will mesh with that little notch on the slide, and that'll keep the slide in place here. So let's go ahead and reassemble. Push your slide lock pin in. As I said, it's not all the way in. You can see there's a bit of a gap in there. That's okay, not a problem. Push it in as far as it'll go, and then gently pull your slide back while holding a thumb on your grip on your slide lock. Once the slide lock goes into place, you'll see it's actually now it's flush with the firearm. Flush with the firearm there. You notice that little half moon that was on top here is now gone into the little notch here and now is behind the slide. Other side of the weapon, you can see the pin now is protruding from the other side here. So we're good to go there. Go ahead, you can dry fire now. And in standard practice, I recommend just running this through 5 or 6 times. Just pulling your slide back. You're doing that just to see if there's anything that you feel is catching inside, anything that's grinding, anything that's hanging, something that will prevent smooth operation of the slide being pulled back. And basically, your firearm now is ready to be reloaded, ready to be fired. And like I said, just treat all weapons as they're loaded and be careful with them. Use them responsibly, and happy shooting. Thank you for watching.